everyone! Before we start, let's take a deep breath to make us focus and relax. Well, let's get started and please enjoy it. Today we learn about the lesson plan and instructional material. In the previous video presented by Litani Tiara Novianti, was talking about the purpose of lesson plan, characteristic of a good lesson plan, and etc. And now with me, Mina Rahma Azizah as the third presenter, we'll talking about the first major elements in lesson plan, that is educational objectives. Educational objectives are the learning outcomes of a lesson. That is what the students should be able to know or to do at the end of the lesson that they could not do at the beginning. It can be called that the educational objectives are a list of things that need to be reached by the students after learning. Maybe all of you have a question about the difference between an aim and a learning objectives. A lesson aim is a very general statement of what the overall goal is in a lesson, or in the intention behind the teaching. And the lesson objectives or objectives are the measurable stage that the learner will go through and need to achieve in order to achieve the overall goal. In making learning objective, it must include this following aspect. Number one is the learner be able to know. This means that how quickly students can find out and they understand the lesson that given by the teacher. In the learning process, of course, there will be material or knowledge conveyed, and student must be able to understand all the material from simple things to level that need depth of thinking. At this point, it relates to the cognitive aspects where after being able to understand of a lesson, the ability to think will develop. Number two, the learner be able to do. At this point relates to the student's ability to do something in the learning process. In the learning process, it will definitely require skills that involve physical, and the skill needed are psychomotor abilities, which can be in the form of movement, behavior, and physical coordination, motor skills, and physical abilities. The third is the learner be able to feel. At this point, it relates to emotions such as habits, appreciation, values, feelings, enthusiasm, interest, and attitudes towards something in the learning process. For students who have understood the lesson that have been given, usually there will be changes in their attitude towards better. Then, in setting educational objective must be accordance with teaching method, learning activities, and type assessment. For example, if the teaching method used is task-based learning or TBL, the learning activity is oriented toward doing tasks, and the type of assessment will be not far from what has been learned in the learning activity. And now, let's move to the type of lesson plan. It is Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy is a classification of the different objectives and skills that educators or teachers set for their students. The taxonomy was proposed in 1956 by Benjamin Bloom, an educational psychologist at the University of Chicago. Bloom's taxonomy was developed to provide a common language for teachers to discuss and exchange learning and assessment methods. Specific learning outcomes can be derived from the taxonomy, though is the most commonly used to assess learning on a variety of cognitive levels. The goal of educators using Bloom's taxonomy is to encourage higher order thought in their students by building up from lower level cognitive skills. behavioral, and cognitive learning outcomes are given to highlight how Bloom's taxonomy can be incorporated into larger-scale educational goals or guidelines. The key phrases can be used, such as example assessment, to prompt for these skills during the assessment process. There are 6 levels in Bloom's taxonomy, and they are arranged from low level to high level. Number 1 is knowledge. It involves the recall of specific and universals, the recall of method and processes, or the recall of a pattern, structure, or setting. In this phase, students will be made to remember, memorize, recognize, recall, identify, and recall information to know the best is used. And then, a feeling of curiously will arise and begin to find out by identifying what to find out. To test a student's ability, he must explain what information he gets. For example, knowing the symbol A is a letter A. The second level is comprehension. It refers to a type of understanding or apprehension such that the individual knows what is being communicated and can make use of the material or idea being communicated without necessarily relating it to the other material or seeing its full implication. For example, knowing the sounds the letter A represents. Number 3 is application. It refers to the use of abstraction in particular and concrete situations. For example, using knowledge of letter sounds to read. And number 4 is analysis. It represents the breakdown of a communication into its constituent elements or parts such that the relative hierarchy of ideas is made clear and or the relation between ideas expressed are made explicit. For example, analyzing a short story or poem to find the theme. Number 5 is synthesis. It involves the putting together of elements and parts so as to form a whole. For example, rewriting Goldilocks and the 3 bears from the perspective of the bears. Number 6, evaluation. Engenders judgments about the value of material and methods for given purposes. For example, critiquing a short story or poem using an agreed upon definition of what constitutes a well-written short story. Another type of making a lesson plan is using SMART GO or SMART. It is an acronym that often stands for goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. They are written by many organizations to set actionable goals commensurate with the group's vision and mission. Let's take a closer look. Number 1 is specific. Goals should be written in the most simplistic manner possible, honing in on one specific outcome. Without this core principle, you might find it hard to focus and in the end, feel unmotivated. Number 2 is measurable. Goals need to be measurable in such a way that tangible evidence can be presented along the way. It's fun to track your milestones. This can be as simple as setting a specific date for your achievement. Number 3, achievable. Goals should be designed like a good workout. They should stretch you slightly so you feel challenged but not cause stress or injury. Number 4 is relevant. It's important to examine your goal. Make sure it's relevant and realistic. Number 5 is time-bound. Goals should be linked to a time frame that creates a practical sense of urgency, creating a healthy tension that will propel you forward. Well, that's all the explanation about educational objectives. Thanks for watching and assalamualaikum.